Opposition-led National Assembly today approved motions to appoint 3 Constitutional Court justice nominees deemed critical to the fate of the impeachment trial of President Yoon. The Democratic Party reported a fresh motion to oust acting President Han Duck-soo as he rejected the final appointment of the nominees. The investigation team has sent its third summons request to the unresponsive president, demanding him to appear on Sunday for questioning over the martial law incident. The number of babies born in October was over 21,000, marking the highest annual rise in more than a decade, which raises hopes amid demographic concerns. It's December 26, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. The main opposition Democratic Party has introduced a motion to impeach acting President Han Duck-soo. Han has postponed appointing 3 Constitutional Court justice nominees as requested by the opposition-led assembly. All this as the court undertakes the impeachment trial against President Yoon. Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young leads us off. During a plenary session on Thursday, the opposition-led National Assembly voted to give consent to the appointments of 3 constitutional justice nominees. The appointments of Ma Eun-hyuk and Chung Kye-sun were passed with 193 votes each in favor, while Cho Han-chang's appointment passed with 185 votes in favor among the 195 lawmakers present amid the ruling People Power Party boycott. There have been strong objections from the PPP, which argues that the nominees, even if confirmed by the Assembly, cannot be appointed by an acting president. Following the vote, Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik urged acting President Han Duck-soo to finalize the appointments.
Since the National Assembly has completed the process for appointing Constitutional Court justices, acting President Han Duck-soo should finalize the appointments without delay or debate.
Ahead of the plenary session, acting President Han Duck-soo announced that he would delay appointing justices until rival parties agree on whether he has the authority to make such decisions. Han emphasized that it is the consistent spirit of the Constitution and law that an acting president should focus on stabilizing the country during a crisis and avoid exercising key presidential powers, including appointments to constitutional institutions.
If exercising such powers is inevitable, it has always been customary in our constitutional history for the National Assembly to first reach a bipartisan agreement. Until the ruling and opposition parties submit an agreed-upon proposal, I will hold off on appointing Constitutional Court justices.
In response, the main opposition Democratic Party immediately introduced an impeachment motion against Han, aiming to put it up for an assembly vote on Friday. The party had initially planned to submit the motion on Tuesday after Han refused to approve investigations into President Yoon Suk-yeol and First Lady Kim Gon-hee, but the plan was postponed. This marks the first impeachment motion against an acting president in South Korea's constitutional history. The PPP criticized the DP's move, claiming it targets not only acting President Han, but also the nation's governance, welfare, and diplomacy. Meanwhile, due to the ongoing confrontation, the launch of a joint consultative body comprising the rival political parties and the government to discuss current state affairs is facing a setback. The ruling and opposition parties initially agreed to establish the body and hold the first meeting on Thursday. However, a National Assembly official stated that the specifics of the joint talks have yet to be finalized. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News. Members of the Constitutional Court held a meeting today ahead of their preparatory hearing for the president's impeachment trial scheduled for tomorrow, amid continued uncertainty over Yoon's attendance and his agenda. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
Still no news from President Yoon Suk-yeol on how he will challenge his impeachment at the Constitutional Court. On Thursday, Press Officer Lee Jin said the president has not submitted any materials or plans to present his case at the court's first preparatory hearing on Friday. The preparatory hearing is expected to kick off at 2 p.m., where 2 judges will gather materials and arguments from both Yoon and the National Assembly, which voted to remove him from office over his imposition of martial law on December 3rd. The judges will then outline the key issues or major grounds for impeachment, and a list of evidence and witnesses to be presented throughout the trial. Prior to the hearing, the National Assembly's Impeachment Committee submitted a plan and a list of evidence witness applications, as well as a power of attorney. However, Yoon has been refusing to receive the court's official documents, requesting his response and preparation for the trial. He also has not yet submitted the requested proclamation of martial law and the minutes of the cabinet meeting that took place shortly before he declared martial law. With no word from Yoon less than a day before the hearing, it's still unclear who will represent the president or whether his team will skip the session entirely. Some observers say it's possible the president himself could show up here on Friday. The Constitutional Court says it cannot reveal at this time whether security detail is being discussed or arranged for such a scenario. Yoon's team so far has expressed the need for more preparation time, adding to concerns that the prosecutor-turned-president will lengthen the trial process with delaying tactics. As uncertainty lingers, all 6 judges at the Constitutional Court held a meeting Thursday morning.
The justices presented a report on the case's progress and response measures, and the full bench shared their awareness of the situation and response strategies.
The court did not disclose what measures they discussed, but maintained that Friday's hearing will go ahead as planned. Around 2 to 3 preparatory sessions are expected before the case proceeds to trial. Meanwhile, as partisan clashes continue over the authority of acting President Han Duck-soo to fill the 3 vacancies on the Constitutional Court bench, an official said the court Secretary General and all 3 judicial candidates have stated that Han is able to appoint the judges. Currently, as 6 out of 9 judges are needed to uphold the impeachment, the current panel of 6 justices would have to vote unanimously in order to remove Yoon from office. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The CIO has decided to summon President Yoon for questioning this Sunday after he rejected 2 previous requests, arguing that the impeachment trial should take priority. Choi Min-jung explains this and more.
South Korea's Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials has for the 3rd time summoned President Yoon Suk-yeol to appear for questioning. Yoon has been requested to appear for questioning at the CIO office in Gwacheon at 10 a.m. on Sunday. The call comes after Yoon ignored the 2 previous summons, once on December 18th and once on Christmas Day. He appears unlikely to respond to the 3rd request, given his continued argument that the Constitutional Court's impeachment trial should take priority over the investigation. Investigators have reportedly stated that requesting an arrest warrant to forcibly secure Yoon's attendance is still a long way off, as there are many factors still to be considered. Meanwhile, the lawyer for the former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun claimed on Thursday that President Yoon ordered the deletion of a public curfew from an initial draft of the martial law decree. Kim's lawyer Yoo Sung-soo stressed that the martial law decree was not targeted at ordinary citizens. Instead, he said that it was aimed at sounding the alarm against political misconduct.
It is to sound the alarm against the political misconduct of exploiting the National Assembly to shield the party leader from criminal responsibility through a tyranny of the majority, convening a bulletproof National Assembly, proposing impeachment 22 times, and ultimately attempting to abolish the budget to paralyze state affairs.
Kim's lawyers claim that the martial law declaration was a presidential warning within legal authority, not an act of insurrection. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
On the local demographic front, more babies were born in October on year, marking the highest annual rise in well over a decade. Lee Soo-jin has the latest data.
The number of births in South Korea rose by the highest rate for October in more than a decade, positive shift amid the country's demographic crisis. Data released by Statistics Korea on Thursday showed 21,398 births in October, up 13.4% compared to the previous year. It's the 4th consecutive month of on-year increase and also marks the largest on-year increase for the month of October since 2010. And the increase of 2,520 births compared to the previous year was also the largest since October 2012. This comes as the number of marriages rose 22.3% on year to more than 19,000. An official from Statistics Korea said the general increase in marriages was a major driver behind the increase in births.
We've continuously been pointing to the increase in marriages influencing the increase in number of births, as well as the growing population in their early 30s.
The number of marriages has shown a steady rise since April this year thanks to efforts from the Yoon administration to tackle the population crisis through childbirth and marriage benefits. October also saw the largest number of marriages for the month of October since 2019. The Statistics Korea official added that the number of births was especially prevalent in women in the early 30s, with people getting married later. But while deaths still exceeded births in October, the number of deaths fell slightly compared to the previous year, leading to a population decline of roughly 8,000. The agency also projected that if this upward trend continues in November and December, the country could see an annual increase in the number of births for the first time in 9 years. 이수진, Arirang News.
The $1 exchange rate exceeded the 1,460 mark for the first time in nearly 16 years. That's attributed to the strong dollar along with the ongoing political turmoil in the country. 박건우 has more.
A 15-year low for the Korean won against the greenback. On Thursday, the $1 exchange rate closed its daytime trading at 1,464.8, its weakest level since March 2009, following the financial crisis. The exchange rate was even at 1,466 at one point during the day. Pundits point to the recently strengthening dollar, especially after the Federal Open Market Committee revised its forecast for interest rate cuts next year, reducing the number of cuts from 4 to 2. Concerns over potential policies under the approaching second Trump administration, including high tariffs and tax cuts that could lead to higher inflation, are also contributing to the dollar's strength. Political instability in South Korea is making matters worse, as acting President Han Duck-soo also faces an impeachment motion. That's compared to expectations that the weakening won will stabilize after President Yoon's impeachment motion was approved. However, concerns are rising that the exchange rate could increase even further.
There's a very good possibility that the won will hit 1,500 before it goes back down. The foreigners are still leaving Korea's stock and securities markets, so that is pushing the won down. So the first thing that the Korea has to do is to get the leadership together and offer a clear path to the presidential impeachment and beyond.
Professor Yang predicts that the won will remain weak at least until the first quarter of next year due to weak economic fundamentals, even without considering the political risk. However, he added, we will need to wait and see how the situation unfolds until Trump shows his actual plans for policies, including those related to tariffs. On Thursday, the benchmark Kospi ended at 2,429, down by over 10 points compared to the previous session, while the tech-heavy Kosdaq closed at 675, down by more than 4 points. 박건우, Arirang News.
South Korea has taken steps to stabilize the tourism market due to the aftermath of the December 3rd emergency martial law incident. Acting President Han Duck-soo announced tourism market stabilization measures on Thursday during a national tourism strategy meeting. He revealed plans to implement a visa-free pilot program for Chinese group tourists. Also outlined were plans to execute 70% of next year's tourism budget in the first half of the year and provide financial support to revitalize the tourism industry. The time for year-end tax settlement years. A wave of new tax breaks will take effect starting with this year's settlement, aimed at supporting families and easing financial burdens for workers. These changes cover areas including marriage, childbirth, and general spending. Our finance correspondent Moon Tae-ryun is here in the studio with this topic. Tae-ryun, first, tell us about what a year-end tax settlement is.
Right, Jungmin. Well, so a year-end tax settlement is essentially a process in which salaried workers reconcile the taxes they've paid throughout the year with the taxes they owe based on their actual income, deductions, and credits. So it's essentially a tax adjustment to ensure that individuals have paid the correct amount of income tax for the year. So typically it takes place at the the end of the fiscal year, which is in January for South Korea. And because there are new tax reforms this year, it's important for taxpayers to familiarize themselves with the regulations to maximize their benefits during the upcoming year-end tax settlement. So the National Tax Service will be offering a simplified service online to provide basic data for taxpayers to report income and do that deduction starting from January 15th.
And what are some significant tax reforms made this year worth noticing?
So a key area of focus this year has obviously been to address the population crisis. And earlier this week, the country officially became a super age society, with those aged 65 and over accounting for 20% of the population. And as a result, a sweep of tax benefits for families starting from newly married couples to those with children have been introduced. A new marriage tax deduction has been set up for couples registering their marriage between this year and 2026. So they'll be eligible for a 500,000 Korean won tax deduction, which equates to roughly $342 that they can redeem only once, regardless of whether it is a first or subsequent marriage. There is also a range of childcare support reforms that are being rolled out, especially for medical expenses. So for families with children, all medical expenses for children aged 6 and under will be fully deductible. Postpartum care is also now included as a medical expense, with even high-income earners with a total salary exceeding 70 million Korean won able to include up to 2 million won in postpartum care expenses within their deductible medical expenses. And the government is also fostering private support for childcare, with company-provided childbirth support funds fully exempt from taxes for up to 2 instances per employee. Additionally, a new reform to the child tax credit means that families with 2 or more children between 8 and 20 years old will receive an additional 50,000 won tax deduction, going from 300,000 won to 350,000 won in total.
What are some tax deductions available for salaried workers outside of marriage and childcare?
So actually these reforms as a whole, they represent a very significant shift in the tax landscape, and they offer support to families and workers across various financial situations. And this means that there are several changes outside of marriage and childcare, including addressing housing cost burdens for buyers and renters alike. So the maximum income deduction for long-term mortgage loan interest has been increased to 20 million won, with the standard price threshold for eligibility raised from 500 million to 600 million won. And workers with a total salary of 80 million won or less can deduct 15% of their annual rent payments up to a million of 10 million won. So for those with a total salary of 55 million won or less, the deduction rate is even higher at 17%. And in South Korea, housing subscription savings accounts enable people to buy a house at a cheaper price than the market price, which makes them very popular. The deduction limit for housing subscription savings has also been increased to 3 million won per year from 2.4 million won.
If you make contributions to pension accounts or housing subscription savings by December 31st, you can receive tax deduction benefits. However, if you terminate these accounts within a certain period without justifiable reasons, after receiving the deductions, termination surcharges may apply.
And to encourage spending to boost domestic demand, an additional income deduction is available for increased credit card and cash receipt usage. If spending has increased by more than 5% compared to the previous year, 10% of the increased amount up to a limit of 1 million won can be deducted. These measures aim to provide broader tax relief and encourage consumption and investment among South Korean taxpayers.
All right, we'll have to check out these for my own year-end tax settlements. Thanks, Arirang, for your report.
Thank you for having me.
Vice Foreign Ministers of South Korea and Japan met in Tokyo on Thursday and agreed to advance high-level interactions for the near future. First Vice Foreign Minister Kim Hong-kyun reassured his Japanese counterpart Masataka Okano about the stability of state affairs within national borders amid the efforts of the acting president. The two sides also agreed to bolster trilateral cooperation with the U.S. against any North Korean provocation and its military coordination with Russia. The Joint Chiefs of Staff has denied allegations that the military, under former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun, planned artillery strikes on North Korea over trash-carrying balloons. The JCS stated no attack was considered and dismissed claims of internal factions influencing operations or leadership indecision. A South Korean outlet's allegations are under legal review for defamation. They also denied separate reports that the National Intelligence Service and the 707's Special Mission Group used drones to target North Korean balloons near Baekneungdo Island, calling the claims baseless. The NIS echoed this denial, labeling them false. These reports are tied to broader allegations that the military sought to provoke conflict with North Korea to justify the December 3rd martial law declaration. On the cultural fronts, the long-anticipated Season 2 of Squid Game was officially released on Netflix at 5 p.m. Korea time on Thursday afternoon. The mega-hit Korean original series returned viewers to a ruthless contest where 456 players engaged in deadly children's games to win a fortune. The first season of Squid Game was released back in 2021 and became one of Netflix's most watched shows of all time with more than 260 million views. Season 2 follows Ki-hoon, played by actor Lee Jung-jae, who returns to Korea from the U.S. with a new goal in mind.
A cold wave warning was issued for the mountainous areas of northern and central Gangwon-do province this morning. In addition, cold wave advisories are also in place over Gangwon-do province, northeastern parts of Gyeonggi-do province, northern parts of Chungcheongbuk-do province, and northeastern parts of Gyeongsangbuk-do province, excluding the east coast. Even though a cold wave warning is not issued for the Seoul metropolitan area, the morning temperature in capital will plunge to -7 degrees Celsius tomorrow. With frigid conditions, snow will begin on the west coast areas early tomorrow morning, and it is expected to expand to Chungcheongdo provinces and Jeju Island. Tomorrow, most areas will start at below 0 degrees, Daejeon -5, Chuncheon -12 degrees. Highs will move up to 1 degree in Seoul, Gwangju, Daegu, and Gyeongju, 4 degrees. Temperatures will get slightly warmer from the beginning of next week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.
How to survive in Korea. Barbecue restaurants. Step 1. Taking care of your clothes. Put your jacket in the plastic bag. Seal it tight. If the stool flips open, store your clothes inside. Wearing light colors? Grab an apron. It's the best defense against oil splatter and smoke. Step 2. Bottomless side dishes. Basic side dishes at a barbecue restaurant. Eat, and eat as much as you want. Side dishes come with free refills. Oh, and if you don't see this sign, just ask, 사장님, 여기 밑반찬 좀 더 주세요. Simple, isn't it? Step 3. Grilling meat. There are various kinds of samgyeopsal in Korea. Place the meat on the grill. Turn it over when golden. And again when it looks done. Again and again and again. Step 4. Sam style. You aren't taking bites of sam like a taco, are you? In Korea, we have it in one bite. A pro tip here. Add only as much as you can handle in a bite. Gotta avoid awkward situations. Step 5. Enjoy the perks. After the meal, enjoy the perks offered as a Korean restaurant. Fabric refreshers get rid of the barbecue smell, while mint candies freshen your breath. Did you survive the barbecue restaurant? Hang on. Are you here with someone you want to impress? Then let's skip the garlic. Who knows what will happen?
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring today's most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gan. Now, as the global food crisis deepens, the challenges surrounding food security have become an urgent concern for governments, international organizations, and citizens alike. The rise in food prices, climate change, and environmental pollution are all contributing factors exacerbating the issue of hunger and poverty. Now, in this context, the role of the UN Food and Agriculture Organization has never been more critical. As the FAO works to address these pressing issues, including through innovations in food systems and global cooperation, countries like South Korea have emerged as key partners in these efforts. Today, we are joined by experts to discuss the global food crisis, the FAO's initiatives, and how international collaboration can help alleviate hunger and enhance food security. For this, we are joined by Kenya Kono, Program Officer at the UN Food and Agriculture Organization online. Welcome.
Thank you. Very pleasure to meet you.
And also joining us is Changgeun Lee, Associate Professor at the Korea Development Institute. Great to have you, Professor.
Thank you.
Now let's start with Mr. Kono. So there are growing concerns that the global food crisis is becoming a daily issue for all of us. Could you start us off with the severity of the food situation on a global scale?
Yes. According to State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World report published by FAO, in 2023, approximately 752 million people are undernourished. And then this corresponds to 9.1% of world population. And in particular, it's increasing 152 million people compared to 2019. And then Africa remains the region with the largest portion of the hunger, and 1 out of 5 people are still undernourished. And ongoing conflicts, like Ukrainian war, is really having a negative impact on food supply chains, and also the grain exports and fertilizer production in Ukraine and Russia. And it really increasing the price and shortages and impacting the low-income countries.
Right, so there's a lot of people still suffering from malnutrition. The FAO's World Food Price Index for November rose by 0.5% to 127.5 points, marking the highest level in 19 months. Professor Lee, so what is the impact of the rise in the food price index on poverty?
Well, rising price index obviously means that foods become more expensive. So the purchasing power of household decreases, and that's particularly severe for low-income households. The Angus Law says that the share of income expenditure on food increases as income decreases. So low-income households are more vulnerable to price increases. So rising food prices mean that they have more financial strain. So they still have to spend their money on education, health, and others. So they have reduced ability to spend on those things, and they are likely to suffer from malnutrition. So it's particularly important to address these challenges, and we can think of some measures such as short-term food subsidies and social safety net, and in the long term we should think of how to promote more kind of resilience to address these issues.
Right, so there are a lot of factors contributing to that. And we might say climate change is considered one of the biggest threats to food security. Professor Lee, how are environmental pollution and extreme weather affecting agricultural productivity?
Well, we can think of some extreme weather events such as floods and drought. So they disrupt planting cycle, and they reduce yield, and they create some unpredictability in production. And pollution causes soil degradation and water scarcity. So all these things affect agricultural productivity through diminishing arable land, and they also threaten food availability. So they are the climate-induced factors that affect agricultural production.
Right. So as our Professor Lee said, given this kind of worsening international food security situation, the role of the FAO seems even more crucial. Mr. Kono, what efforts has the FAO made so far to address food crisis and alleviate rural poverty?
Yes, FAO has been taking lead to alleviate hunger and poverty for the past decades. And I'd like to give you 4 key efforts we have been making. The first is the emergency and humanitarian assistance. Emergency response as a program, FAO provides immediate assistance to the communities which is hit by the crisis and conflict, drought, and provide seed, fertilizers, and tools. And then also veterinary supplies so that the farmers and pastorists can recover their livelihoods. And the second is the building resilient agriculture. Basically, FAO promotes the climate smart agriculture, which is resilient and water efficient, and also the drought tolerant, and then agroecologically sound. FAO also promotes the soil conservation and agroforestry. That's part of the efforts. And then the third key effort is the rural development programs, empowering smallholders. They are the majority of the poverty, the population in the world. And then we also improve the agricultural productivity and market access of the farmers. And then we work very intensively with women and youth, which are often in a very weak position, by promoting micro-enterprise and cooperatives. And then lastly, we also work as a nutrition and food security. And we promote the nutrition-sensitive agriculture, diversifying the food sources like legumes and vegetables and fruits in particular. And we also strongly promote the school feeding program in partner with other UN agencies, which contributes to a good learning and good health of the children.
Right. Thank you for the clear explanation on that. Now, we also hear that the FAO believes that overcoming food insecurity is impossible without the innovation in food systems. Mr. Kono, first tell us, how can transitioning to a sustainable food system help solve not only the food insecurity, but also the climate crisis? And what is food system in the first place?
Yes. Well, in short, food system is everything which is connected with food and agriculture. And why we call it system is because it's all interconnected. And agri-food system cover the journey of food from farm to fork. It includes seedlings and growing, fishing, harvesting, and then processing, packaging, and transporting, and distributing, cooking, and dining, and then disposing. So basically the whole process. And then in FAO term, agriculture includes a broad set of agriculture, fishery, and forestry. And agri-food system play a key role for both food security and climate change because agriculture is considered a big amount of the green climate house emission. It's considered approximately like 1/3 of it. And then it's not only from the food production, but also from the supply chain. So we really need to look into all the process of this. And transition of the food system to sustainable one really make a difference in having a holistic value chain and also environmentally sound production system. And it should be also socially inclusive. And promoting climate smart agriculture, reducing emissions or production of the emission gas is really critical. And by transforming the agri-food system, for instance, not only limited to this production and value chain side, but also consumption, because we are wasting quite a large amount of food. And if we reduce the food loss and waste, that itself contributes significantly to the climate change. And this whole set of efforts is really required as of today.
Right. So as our Mr. Kono mentioned, the FAO supports countries in preparing and responding to key food security issues based on data. Now, as an economist, Professor Lee, how do you evaluate the FAO's efforts in this regard?
Well, the FAO provides statistical tools such as FAO Stat and the Global Information and Early Warning System. These are quite crucial in supporting countries to anticipate a crisis and make some informed decisions. So we've been talking about evidence-based policymaking, but it's impossible without data. And sometimes data are very expensive, which means it's very difficult to collect data. So the FAO offers a platform that provide comprehensive data and enable member countries to address some systematic problems. So it makes them possible to identify vulnerability, target resources effectively, and track progress toward key policy goals, such as SDGs. And I would also like to say that knowing is one thing, but doing is another. So the FAO works towards making the policymakers more kind of capable. So capacity building is another FAO effort because it's quite important for developing countries to implement policies effectively and using and utilizing the data and evidence drawn from the data. So that might be another area the FAO is working hard, and that could be another area that can contribute to addressing a food crisis.
Right, so these efforts are regarded as very crucial and important in resolving the crisis. Now let's also take a look at the cooperation between the Republic of Korea and the FAO. This year marks the 75th anniversary of South Korea's membership in the FAO. Mr. Kono, what are the practical outcomes of cooperation between FAO and South Korea?
Yes, 75 years of partnership with FAO and the Republic of Korea has been a very successful one because in these 7 decades, Korea has shifted from hunger, persuasive developing country to an OECD country, and from a recipient of assistance to a donor. And then the per capita GDP has significantly increased from $67 in 1953 to now over 34,000. So FAO is very proud to take part of this journey by providing technical assistance and policy dialogue and capacity building, and also technical interventions through the program. And I'd like to also mention that the Republic of Korea has supported a number of countries through the FAO project. It's over 25 FAO projects already implemented worldwide, with a total funding is more than $90 million and benefiting 80 countries. And those projects are really crucial to support the people and farmers in all the countries. And we are very much appreciative for Korea's support.
Right, so a long history between the two sides. Now, speaking of which, Professor Lee, how can South Korea's experience in transitioning from a food aid recipient to a donor, like Mr. Kono mentioned, contribute to solving global food security and rural development challenges?
Well, South Korea is a country that achieved successful industrialization, but at the same time, it's a country that achieved a successful agricultural transition. So, and it's particularly important because Korea achieved both raising agricultural productivity and fostering environmental sustainability. So we can think of many things that make this possible. For example, the bottom-up, community development, so rural development, and market-oriented approach, and reforestation that also, reverse the deforestation trends and improving ecosystem and mitigating climate changes, and recent digitalization that contributed to all these and improving agricultural, value chains. So we can think of major achievement in the 1960s, 70s, but we can also think of recent, improvement. And all this experience can inspire developing countries to address the dual, policy changes, which means, agricultural, productivity increase and environmental sustainability.
Right, and speaking of this, we also touched upon the cooperation between South Korea and the FAO. In particular, the South-South and Triangular Cooperation Project was carried out together with South Korea's Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs and the FAO. Mr. Kono, could you elaborate on this project? What is the significance and outcomes of this project?
Yeah, sure. With the support of Korea, FAO has been implementing a project to tackle the rice value chain in 3 countries, namely Cote d'Ivoire, Philippines, and Tanzania. And it's extremely important because actually, do you know how much rice is consumed in Cote d'Ivoire?
I cannot imagine.
Yeah. Actually, they consume more than 70 kilograms per year, which is actually more than Korea. And it's really surprising how much rice actually they are starting to consume in Africa. And then the demand is in rapid growth. And not only that, as you can see, a large rice importing countries in Asia, such as Philippines and Indonesia, they are increasing their own population. So the global demand and supply of rice is really dynamic. So nowadays, rice cultivation and rice trade are really getting very important highlight. And then this project is supporting the rice production and sector development in 3 countries. And first of all, we are looking at the increase of their productivity because in case of Tanzania and some part of Cote d'Ivoire, without sufficient irrigation, they produce only 1 to 2 tons per hectare, which is significantly lower than average. So we are doing intensive training to extension workers and farmers to increase the productivity by introducing practical technologies. Second aspect we are looking for is the environmentally sustainable production. Within our project, we are introducing the way to reduce the water use and also to reduce the fertilizer use without impacting the productivity. And also we are covering the integrated pest management. And third aspect we are working is the mechanization. Because using the machine For example, land preparation, which took 1 whole month, can be done in just 1 day. And not only that, by using the combined harvester, for example, we can significantly reduce the post-harvest losses. So those are extremely important to enhance the rice production and also the processing. So we are looking at the introduction of the machines, but also we have a high emphasis on the maintenance of the machine because it's a large investment, and we would like farmers to use the machine once introduced for a very long time.
So we will look forward to that. Now, Professor Lee, could you tell us about your views on the future global food market outlook? And from an economics perspective, what are the key challenges in solving food security issues moving forward?
Well, we have multiple challenges. I mean, several wars are still going on. And we have other types of geopolitical tensions that affect, the value chains. And as we discussed, we have climate change that negatively affects the agricultural sector. So we are in a very difficult situation, and we have multifaceted problems. So I think we should think of, first of all, deploying more kind of technologies such as AI, like we discussed, evidence and data-driven agriculture. So we will have to understand how we can leverage the smart technologies that would also help our adaptation and mitigation efforts. And we should also inform farmers so that they can respond to market changes and they can diversify food production, and also they can reduce post-harvest losses. And more systematically, we can think of improving infrastructure so that it can improve market access. And eventually, we should think of transforming agricultural, entire system to be more sustainable. And in doing so, I think the FAO's role is quite critical because it has platforms where multiple countries can cooperate to deal with short-run disruptions and addressing long-term challenges. And they have technical expertise, so they can reach out and help countries in need. So I'm looking forward to the FAO's role in helping these countries out.
All right, let's all hope for that to become resolved in earnest. Now, we'll have to leave our discussion right here. Many thanks again to Professor Lee and Mr. Kono for your insights tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And that will be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.